Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I'm Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are breaking down the absolute floor and ceiling for the Carolina Panthers in the 2024 season. We're going to review all the improvements that they made and how it's going to affect their schedule. And this is going to be the last series that we do before going into the regular season. So if you like the content that we make, go ahead, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tackle that bell. Get notified when new videos come out. Once the regular season comes, we're going to have weekly prediction videos for all of the Panthers games that you're not going to want to miss. So subscribe and tackle that bell. Ryan, Panthers obviously were one of the worst teams in the league last year, and I think they did make overall improvements, such as just improving the offensive line, adding a lot more weapons, I think, to this offense. And really what I think that this is going to allow is for us to really get a full understanding on how good Bryce Young can be. We've been saying this a lot throughout the offseason and even going into last season, where towards the end of the season, where we were glad to see people were recognizing, like, yes, Bryce Young is not looking good, but it's not really his fault because, like, he had weapons to throw to. He had no help really on the offensive line, in the backfield. I mean, Chuba Hubbard, I think, has done a lot with his career, but I think Jonathan Brooks is a clear enhancement. I think going and get Xavier Leggett is going to be a big enhancement for this offense as well. Trading for Deontay Johnson, I think, is going to help out. I think more just giving them more options, And so now you can start to. It's almost like when you, as a Falcons fan, it's like when you are struggling, it's like, is it the head coach's fault? Is it the GM's fault for making 4 draft picks? Like, okay, well, we eliminated one scenario, so let's see how this works, and kind of addressing those variables. What are some other areas you feel the Panthers have also improved on to kind of help out their chances to make as much as possible with this season?
Yeah, I mean, the other area where I think they really improved is they got rid of Frank Reich and they brought in Dave Canales.
Yeah.
That, to me, I think you look at what Frank Reich has done over the course of his head coaching career. He was a good OC in Philadelphia, won a Super Bowl, got the coordinator job in Indianapolis, but he had a good start, and ever since then, it just felt like he has lost his fastball and has not been the best head coach or really offensive mind. And Dave Canales he had a really good year down in Tampa last year, helping Baker Mayfield revive his career. I think you look too at some of the weapons that they have now: Deontay Johnson, Xavier Leggett, Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo was a second-round pick last year. Terrace Marshall Jr. was a second-round pick 3 years ago. So a lot of young weapons that I think he can grow with. And then you already mentioned Jonathan Brooks, Chuba Hubbard. They still have Miles Sanders, and they have Rashad Penny as well. Those are 4 backs who were highly touted coming out of college, have had success at an NFL level, obviously barring Jonathan Brooks, who is a rookie. But all in all, I think they've done a good job of retooling this offense. And another weapon that I think that is going understated is Jatavian Sanders. They got him at the top of the 4th round. A lot of people thought he was a second-round pick from Texas, and so I think that's another really good improvement there. And we'll just have to see how he pans out. So I do think this offensive line is going to be much better. Robert Hunt from Miami, Damian Lewis and Austin Corbett helping solidify the interior there. Akem Ekwonu has been maybe a little bit of a disappointment at tackle, but I do like him just in his physicality. I think he just needs to polish up some of the bad reps and be slightly more consistent. And I think he'll be a good tackle at this level. So all in all, I think they've done a really good job in one off season of retooling this offense. And I will say they did that a little bit at the expense of the defense. They still have Derek Brown, Ashawn Robinson, but they did trade away Brian Burns, their leading sack rusher. They went out and signed Jadeveon Clowney, but that's not quite the same caliber of player, I think.
Yeah. No, and that was going to be my final point kind of before going into the season, and in which I will say with the modern day NFL, though, you need to be able to score. So for a rebuilding team, be like, let's at least put up an offense that has the potential to put up 30 points. It felt like, the last I could go back and look at their schedule, but I don't think the Panthers scored 3 points in the final 2 weeks of the season. So it's I'll go back and double check that just to confirm. But I think if there's a little bit of sacrifice on the defensive side of the ball for the time being, and they can start retooling on that side once when you feel more confidence in the offense. But you have to be able to score in this league, and so I think making those improvements there. And so going into the schedule here, start off. Let's start off. Let's start with the floor, just so then we can end high on the ceiling here. I do think there's some potential for the Panthers season, but so if Bryce Young doesn't pan out, I think that's a big thing, kind of with all these moves as we've talked about, is offensively, like, let's put together at least an offense that we feel Bryce Young can succeed in. And if we're not succeeding, then maybe we can reevaluate that QB position as well. Because Dave Canales is going to have no commitment really to Bryce Young if he doesn't really feel like he works well within the system or whatnot. And I'm not saying that is probably going to happen. Bryce Young, from every single level of his career, has been nothing but success. And so, except for last year. But starting off week 1 at New Orleans, week 2 at hosting Los Angeles Chargers, week 3 at Las Vegas, week 4 Cincinnati, week 5 at Chicago, and then week 6 at Atlanta. I think they're going to be Panthers, as of right now, are probably going to be underdogs in the majority of their games. And so I think if I'm looking at the floor of those 6 games, it's New Orleans, a division game. I think that could be a loss. Chargers. I mean, it is possible. This is a stretch where they could go 0-6 here, like on the worst case scenario. Then if you go to week 7 at Washington, week 8 at Denver, week 9 hosting New Orleans, week 10 in the United Kingdom against the Giants. I'll stop there because they have a bye week 11. I think worst case scenario through those first 10 games, they maybe only win 1 or 2 games, because that week 7 to week 10 is going to be a much easier stretch than what it was a week 6. It's like I think worst case scenario for them is 2-8 through that scenario. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think for me, it's not necessarily favorable because I feel like some of the easier matchups that they have are on the road. So at the week 1 at New Orleans, Chicago, we're unsure of. They look good on paper, but that's at Chicago, which makes that matchup harder. And then they're at Washington and at Denver, who are 2 of the worst teams in the league currently. And to me, that just makes this schedule harder because you're giving up 3 points on the road to begin with, and that's in like a betting over under or spread, but it doesn't help their cause. I think when they're trying to go and like, okay, this is a team that we can actually beat, but we have to go there to beat them, type of mentality. And so I don't think this is a favorable schedule for them to start. They definitely have some winnable games, but I think 2-8 is probably the floor because they'll sneak out a few games here or there. Week 11 bye, coming back from the bye, I think it's a pretty tough start with Kansas City, Tampa Bay, and then at Philly. Three tough games there. Tampa Bay is a division game, but so we'll just kind of have to see how that one plays out. But Kansas City and at Philly, those are 2 really good teams. And to me, it doesn't really get much easier because week 15 and 16, you have Dallas and Arizona. And I know Arizona is not a playoff team last year, but they fought and played harder than just about anybody in the league. And I think that's going to be an interesting matchup for Carolina to go up against. And then to close out the year, they have 2 division matchups on the road at Tampa Bay and at Atlanta. And I just have a feeling those teams are going to be competing for the division. They're not going to be pushovers at that point in the season. So those are 2 tough games to really end on there. So I think even going from week 12 to 18, if they were 2-8 in the first 10 games, I could realistically see them being like 4-13 as their floor, and only sneaking out maybe a couple wins there at the end. And honestly, I think you even have to stretch in those last 2 weeks or the last 7 weeks to get them 2 wins there.
That's what I was thinking. The floor is going to be. It's going to be about 4-13, where you can see like these moves that they've made that on paper are good, like getting Leggett, getting Brooks with their first 2 pick standards as well, but then bringing Deontay Johnson, making improvements on the offensive line. They just don't pan out, or if Bryce Young just doesn't mesh well. I can see that. Like that's a possibility, and so that's where I agree with you. I think 4-13 was going to be. It's going to be the floor, but I do think though, looking at the schedule, that I think if we're going back at it, and those first 10 games, I can see them. Chargers are also going through a rebuild. Let's see what happens with the Raiders as well. And I think the Raiders are going to be a good team, but there are still some vulnerabilities. Let's say they can even beat New Orleans as well. Let's say in those first 10 games, they can be 4-6, and then they're able to sneak out a couple of division wins and then beat Arizona and win it and go 4-3 in the final 7 games. I can see. I think 8-9 is a good ceiling for them, and that's not exactly playoff worthy. But the Panthers team, I think, right now is you're wanting to just see that marginal improvement. So as a Falcons fan, like feel like we've been in rebuild since the Super Bowl, and that's that's what we were hoping for last year is just this marginal improvement year in, year out, and year over year of these past couple of years. So even if you don't make the playoffs, just have that excitement going into the 2025 season and get out of picking in the top 10, essentially, in the draft. I think 8-9 is probably their ceiling. I think that's a good thing as well. Just because it'll show that marginal improvement, it'll show that these additions have been receptive.
Yeah, and when you are a young team, second-year quarterback, multiple rookie weapons with Xavier Leggett, Jatavian Sanders, Jonathan Brooks, a new offensive line that isn't going to have played together for more than a few months, especially in the beginning of the year. You want to judge them more of the quality of the product that they're putting on the field rather than the end result, because the end result will come, I think, in a year or two if these pieces are coming together correctly. And that to me, I think, is more what Panthers fans should be looking for rather than the actual in the actual wins and loss column. And I know that's probably not the answer that Panthers fans want to hear, but this is a slow process. You have a young team. You want to identify players that you can build a core around and go out in future years and properly add pieces around those players. So all in all, I think the Panthers have a hopeful future, but this season, I think it is going to be more moral victories than actual victories.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's going to be fun to watch to see if how they improve overall.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and wrap this one up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of the Carolina Panthers and what you think they're going to do in 2024. And other than that, we will see you guys next time.